pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Well, hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another Friday Reads, and I'm out in a park. And I got lots to tell you about. I had a pretty darn good reading week. I finished 2 novels. One I've already posted my full review of, and that is The Heir of Redcliffe by Charlotte Young. An 1853 novel that I absolutely loved. Nobody's ever heard of it. That is a tragedy. I found it just absolutely delightful and a deep character study of a young man with a curse over his head. I don't mean in the supernatural sense, but just in terms of he's got bad blood in his lineage, and can he become a good moral person? And he was just an absolutely adorable character. There was one of his mannerisms in the novel that I forgot to include in my review because there was just so much to say, but he's such a fidgety guy, and that just made him so corporeal to me. That he was always fidgeting and kind of impatient and pacing around when he was waiting for people to go out on a hike or something. And so his adoptive family encouraged him to play a piece of music, the Harmonious Blacksmith, to take care of his fidgeting when he was waiting for somebody or something. And so he's always playing Harmonious Blacksmith during the novel. I absolutely adored him. But there was another character, disabled young man, teenager, maybe by the end of the novel he's 20, who I loved even more. Charles Edmonston. Yeah, it's one of my favorite Victorian novels. Check out my review if you'd like to hear more. Somewhat less successful was the Welsh novel that I read in English translation, Rhys Lewis by Daniel Owen, published in 1885 in Welsh, translated by Robert Lomas. It's a gorgeous translation, so I followed Robert Lomas on Twitter, and he followed me back. So, Mr. Lomas, if you're watching this, I have no fault with your gorgeous translation of this novel. But this novel was, by the end, suffered from being too Dickensian and too religious for me. There was so much religion. I should have expected it. The first-person narrator is a Calvinist preacher, and his mother was worse, but she died halfway through, thank God. So it got a little bit less religious, but of course then he went to seminary or whatever they call it in Calvinist, Methodist circles. But the part about his childhood and his best friend and the colorful characters in his rinky-dink little town in Wales were delightful. So there was different energies in the novel, and I should be more understanding about that, but it was the Calvinist doctrine. The emphasis on converting everybody and trying to save everybody and all that stuff, it was just slathered on so thick that, I mean, I had to skim it after a while. But the really colorful people, they really did jump off the page. So if you don't mind religious stuff as much as I do, you might enjoy it. But again, the writing was really good. The characters were really memorable. But the religious hokum pokum blah blah blah, just bleh. And the story about his father, he had a bad father, and that whole thing was too Dickensian for me. So, 3 stars. I've started 3 books this week. This little strange hybrid George Eliot thing, The Lifted Veil, which is actually a novella, but it's paired with her famous essay, Silly Novels by Lady Novelists. This is a buddy read with Curtis of Curtis Books and Books, and we read the novella, The Lifted Veil, last Sunday. And I can't remember very much about it. It wasn't very good. It was fine. No, it wasn't. It was not interesting at all. Young, sick man falls in love with his older brother's fiance, and then blah, blah, blah. And it's got a supernatural element, and 1859, yeah, George Eliot. I'm not so sure about George Eliot anymore. I need to reread what I read and loved when I was a much younger man and read more by her, but this certainly doesn't endear me to her at all. However, there was one bright spot that Curtis and I both remarked upon, which is he's in love with his brother's girlfriend, and he gives, it's her birthday or something, and he gives her an opal, and then she doesn't wear it, and he confronts her. Does she care about him so little that she doesn't even wear the jewel that he gave her? And this is her reply. Do I despise it, she answered, taking hold of a delicate gold chain which she always wore round her neck, and drawing out the end from her bosom with my ring hanging to it. It hurts me a little, I can tell you, she said with her usual dubious smile, to wear it in that secret place. And since your poetical nature is so stupid as to prefer a more public position, I shall not endure the pain any longer. And she pretends that she's going to throw it away and she's not going to wear it down there anymore. And the poor lad can't sleep for 3 days after that happens. That was quite a brilliant little mini scene. Actually, all 3 books, just spoiler alert, all 3 books that I started this week have been very, as we say in Japanese, ma-ma, so-so. The other one is Dodo, E.F. Benson's first novel, 1893. I'm doing this for Victober. Started out brilliantly. It was so wildy, and at first I thought, oh, he's totally ripping off the importance of being earnest with the humor and the banter, the repartee, the persiflage. But actually, this was published 2 years before the importance of being earnest. So I want to do some more research in terms of what kind of campy humor Wilde had already published by this time, because I'm wondering if he ripped off E.F. Benson. But anyway, the first couple chapters are just campily delightful. And then it tries to make it more serious, and it just going downhill really fast. So I've got a day or two left to read before I'll be finished it maybe tomorrow, and I don't have high hopes that it's going to be a successful read. And I will explain more later, so I'll be a little coy here, but this is not for Victober, obviously. I started Bright Lights, Big City by Jay McInerney. I'd never read it, and I'm reading it for a very specific purpose, and I'm certainly not enjoying it. But I'm reading it because it's one of the most famous modern examples of a novel being written in the second-person point of view. And I'm getting a lot out of that. It's kind of like a research project. I'm going to be making an essay, video, or discussion video about second-person point of view. And I'll explain why and more a little later. But that's why I'm reading it, and it reminds me so much of my most hated novel of this year, or one of my most hated novels, Emily Nothom's Fear and Trembling. That office, that kind of breezy office humor, type of fiction, it just makes me want to puke. And this one, my comment on Goodreads after I'd read 20% yesterday was, yuck! Somebody's playing the piano or practicing piano very softly in the background. I'm wondering if the mic will pick it up. It's quite lovely. So that's what I've started. No bails. And it's going to be an exciting reading week coming up. So skipping ahead, maybe the second week in November, I'm doing a buddy read of this novel from Zimbabwe, This Mournable Body by Cici Dangaremba. Newly published in the West anyway, this year by Grey Wolf Press. And I was vaguely aware of her, Cici Dangaremba, and the more I kind of looked into her, into preparing for this buddy read, and this is going to be a buddy read with Eric Carl Anderson and Britta Bowler, so that's la creme de la creme of buddy reads, hey? I realized that This Mournable Body is actually a sequel to her first novel, Nervous Conditions, which was published in 1988. So how fascinating that so many years later she's written a sequel. But in fact, then I dug a little more, and no, it's actually a trilogy. So this is 1988, Nervous Conditions. And then the Book of Naught was published in 2006. And now in 2018, This Mournable Body. And it's a trilogy. I don't know if it's going to continue, so maybe this is just the third in a continuing series. But once I realized there was 2 more to read, I thought, you know what, I'm going to expedite my Victober reading. So I'll be done all of my Victober reading by about Sunday, most of it by tomorrow. And before the end of the month, I am going to read both of these and probably do a review video in preparation for reading the newest one. And my point of view research is connected to this too, but I won't say more. Stay tuned. Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting reading week. Oh, so nonfiction November and novellas in November start next Thursday. I don't know which of those books for my TBR, my Novellas in November TBR, is up. My nonfiction November, yes, I am going to try again this year. Hopefully it won't be a nonfiction Novexit, but I'm going to do my best. That TBR video will go up by the end of this weekend or early Monday or Tuesday or something. But I'll be starting some of those books next Thursday and Friday. I just don't know which one, so I'm going to keep you in suspense. That's the kind of week it's been in my bookish life. How about you? What's up, reading-wise or otherwise? Thanks for watching.